Hello viewers and welcome to another match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today I'm pleased to present you with another featured match from Sam Mann's Black Crusade, his online Conquest LCG competitive league. For today's game we have two players, Random Joe at the bottom of the screen playing as our latest AM faction warlord Broderick Worr, and he's up against Kevin Corvus Hines, one of the most fearsome Dark Eldar players out there, whom of course is going to be playing as his tried and true Packmaster Kith. So, both of our players are currently deciding whether or not they want to keep their opening hands. Looks like Random Joe is going to be beginning the game with initiative, and just in assessing his opening hand, he's got a couple really cheap early game economy units. He's got Anxious Infantry Platoon, which is absolutely fantastic. The Emperor's Warrant is going to be spectacular should Kith decide to snipe some of the AM economy units, just because it allows you to tap one enemy unit and then deal damage equivalent to its attack value to another enemy unit at that planet. But regardless, looks like both of our players have decided to mulligan here. So instead, taking a peek at Corvus's hand, looks like Corvus is beginning the game with a pair of unique Dark Eldar units. Siren Zithlex, everyone should know what she does by now. 3 cost 2 command icons. Whenever an enemy unit is deployed to a planet, it arrives exhausted. Solarite Avedis to deal out enormous amounts of damage through its reaction, in addition to the flying keyword and that 4 HP reservoir. And then just a couple cheap econ units for our Dark Eldar player as well, in addition to two value shield cards. For our Astra Militarum player, he starts off with a very fascinating hand, something very much which could serve to be the downfall of Packmaster Kith is going to be this opening deploy action of the forward barracks. Whenever a combat round ends, if you control an AM unit at that planet, you put into play a guardsman token, and note that our first 2 planets as well as planet number 4 are all going to be green. Therefore, Broderick Worr is going to be heavily incentivized to pursue those planets, and if he can stretch out combat, then he'll be able to dump a 2/2 token unit into play at the end of each and every combat round, and that could be monumentally deleterious for Kith here, and especially in the context of having these 2 preemptive barrages in hand, that could definitely allow the Astra Militarum player to stick around for quite a long time. But we've got another Anxious Infantry Platoon, a Tallarn Raiders, and we also see a copy of the signature attachment for our Astra player. That could boost up War to 3 attack value, and then whenever a unit leaves play, you're able to pick and choose an army unit to deal damage to. And then I guess, again, for Kith, really all that Kith has got is just kind of the standard Dark Eldar fare. Kevin is deciding where exactly he wants to put out some of his first units. Planet number 1 is going to be Taurus, something actually pretty interesting to see as planet number 1, just because War has the benefit of potentially deploying very few units to that planet, and then he can kind of reinforce himself with the forward barracks as it goes, so he can keep his unit count low. Kith, she generates a Chimera token wherever she goes, so Dark Eldar normally play quite a few units. The Astra Militarum faction normally have quite a few units, so I suppose it's probably good that we see Taurus out of the way early. Planet number 2 is Iridial, that healing planet, so I can only imagine that War might end up receiving his bolt pistol just so he can end up dealing out quite a bit of damage, potentially rather early on, just knowing full well that he'll be able to heal it away. And the same thing goes for Packmaster Kith, but planet number 1, we've got an Anxious Infantry Platoon now garrisoned at that location. That means it's going to be able to attack for 4. If War shows up at that planet, he's going to guarantee he'll have initiative. If Kith shows up to planet number 1, she'll not be able to kill off the infantry platoon in a single swing. It could potentially do something like kill the Chimera token that accompanies Kith, and then that'll be the end of a combat round, and that'll be a guardsman token generated, so that definitely looks a little bit tricky for Kevin. Planet number 3, where we currently see Siren Zithlex sitting, that's going to be Karnath, which triggers the battle ability of any other planet. It's not going to be Taurus, because by the time we get there, that'll be removed, but it could be healing, it could be forcing both players to put a unit into play, or it could be routing a target non-Warlord unit. But of course, War confers considerable protective benefits to each and every Astra Militarum faction unit sitting at a green strongpoint planet. Can't retreat, can't be routed, and further, it of course gets that just incredible attack value bonus. But Solarite of Vetus is going to be played out to planet number 1, and I'm really curious in regard to what Kevin is trying to accomplish here. If Broderick goes to planet number 1, he'll be able to attack for 2, then the Solarite will do a reaction. Like the Anxious Infantry platoon swings for 4, it's cut in half down to 2, that could almost kill the Solarite, but then again, Kevin's got 2-value shield cards, so he could drop that 4 to effectively 0. That reaction is going to be firing off each and every time. Even Broderick himself could take a fair bit of damage from Solarite of Vetus, and Broderick, without the assistance of the Commissarial Bolt Pistol, he's only going to be able to deal out like 2 cut in half is just going to be 1, but 3 cut in half is rounded up to 2. So Solarite of Vetus is a hell of a card to try and play around, but at least it means Corvus is out of resources, and let's see how exactly the AM player tries to deal with that. He's certainly got a mountain of shield cards. He could throw the Tallarn Raiders also to planet number 1 to attack for 3, but Siren Zithlex is going to be able to presumably win a card in a resource. I guess Broderick, really the best he could do in regard to command is maybe show up at Iridial and just win a single individual card. But Random Joe still has 3 resources. He's got a Rattling Deadeye in hand and that Tallarn Raiders, and it's all going to come down to, does he want to invest incredibly heavily in winning this first planet and not being able to trigger a battle ability, or does he want to just kind of deploy his units in regard to what will win him command? So Tallarn Raiders hits the tabletop, but it seems like Random Joe is still not exactly sure. Looks like he takes that play back, and perhaps he's doing Rattling Deadeye, or, yeah, it looks like he's calling out that he is still thinking. And let's see, I guess Kevin is totally out of resources. He could promote his Solarite at planet number 1, but if Broderick arrives at that planet, then he's going to be losing command regardless. So let's think for a moment. If Broderick goes to planet number 1, the platoon could attack, potentially dealing no points of damage to the Solarite. Maybe Broderick attacks, maybe he retreats, but the trick with doing that guardsman token thing is you can easily win battles of attrition with Broderick Worr, where if your opponent can only kill off 1 unit at a time, then you could potentially be screwed, because you can't, stop the flood of guardsman tokens, but because Solarite of Vetus can deal damage to an infinite number of attackers, she's an absolutely fantastic workaround here for forward barracks. But we do see that promotion on Solarite of Vetus. We do see the Rattling Deadeye played out to that planet, so it's potentially going to be able to attack for 2 during the ranged skirmish round. But again, Solarite of Vetus has flying, and there's not really anything great that War can do to work around that. He was not so fortunate as to come across a copy of God, I guess what would be ideal to see, Inquisitorial Fortress would easily rout Solarite of Vetus, but I think this Commissarial Bolt Pistol on Broderick Worr might be great. If you send him to the first planet, again, it's kind of putting all your eggs in one basket, but even if Kith shows up, you could say the Rattling Deadeye takes a shot at Solarite of Vetus, either you shield it or it's damaged, then the Rattling itself is killed, but thanks to the Bolt Pistol, because an army unit is leaving play, you're able to deal out damage, and I guess if if you were to have Broderick hang around long enough to have the Anxious Infantry platoon die, then that would be another point of damage dealt out to Solarite Avedis as well. So I'll be curious if we see Broderick go extraordinarily heavily to planet number 1, and then Kith herself could definitely make things pretty tricky too. The problem with Kith arriving is that if Kith dares to show up at planet number 1, we could see preemptive barrage be 4, 7, 9 damage dealt out to Packmaster Kith, and even if we were to cut that by, well, I guess 4, that would be Kith remaining hail, but she would definitely have to get out of there at the earliest possible opportunity here. But again, considering Iridial is going to be planet number 2, you may as well be ballsy with Kith, you may as well be ballsy with Worr. So let us pause for a moment and see what exactly our players do. All right, so it's going to be that copy of Tallarn Raiders put out to planet number 1, and that is an extreme investment in the first planet, but I could only imagine that maybe Worr was afraid Kith would show up at that planet, so let's see if Kith decides to just let it go. This is now going to be a mountain of Astra Militarum units potentially flooding Worr's HQ, but Worr might be showing up at planet number 3. He might use this opportunity to kill Siren Zithlex, just to make sure that when he goes to deploy units to that planet, they don't arrive exhausted, and then he could trigger Iridial with Karnath's battle ability. So I will be curious to see if Kith shows up to planet number 1, if Worr shows up to planet number 3, or planet number 1. I guess it all just kind of remains to be seen here, but Farron is not going to be able to do anything against the AM players, so that's probably not at all a desirable destination for Kith. Kith has got a few cards in hand, but no resources really to play anything with. I guess it's 3 command icons versus 3 command icons. Siren Zithlex is looking to potentially win Corvus. Just 1 resource, so even if he had an Archon's Terror, that would not be sufficient. A sufficient number of resources to play it. And then our AM player similarly doesn't have any resources to pay even the 1 cost associated with preemptive barrage here. So I guess Kevin has indicated he has chosen where he wants to go, just because it would be exciting. All right, so it's going to be Planet 3 for Kith, and it's going to be Planet 1 for Worr. So let's see how much damage Solarite Avedis potentially deals out to this Astra Militarum force here. And then it looks like Broderick also arrived at planet number 1. I'm wondering if Kevin's thought process had to do with just thinking that Worr might show up to planet number 3 and then just wanting to absolutely beat Worr up as much as possible, send him away from that planet, and then block him off again. Like Kith may have been trying to kind of just bloody Broderick as quick as possible, just because, especially with the context of forward barracks here, the quicker you can flip Worr over and he's no longer granting that attack bonus and that anti-rout effect, all of these units, the better. And I don't know if I mentioned it before, but this is going to be one of the top 16 matches. This is a single elimination match. We've already gone through the 6 weeks of Swiss. We've already played the top 32 single elimination round. So between Random Joe and between Corvus, whomsoever loses this match is going to be out of the tournament. Looks like we had a momentary disconnect, and now Packmaster Kith is trying to decide whether or not she wants to make a Chimera token. At present, we've got 4 Astra Militarum units relative to the Dark Eldar 3, and I can only imagine that Kevin is doing all the difficult combat math I'm not going to bother myself with in deciding, does he want to put a Chimera into play, or does he want to risk Taurus here. So let's say we've got the initiative on, let's see, so Kevin ended up getting 1 card and 1 resource, whereas Random Joe also got 1 card and 1 resource. So Kevin came across a copy of Bloodied Reavers, 2 attack, 2 hit points, 1 command icon, 2 cost, whereas our Astra Militarum player got a Steel Legion Chimera. Always great to see a nice survivable unit to ensure that you're going to be able to start that forward barracks. And now we begin with the interesting combat math. So we see combat at planet number 1. A Rattling Deadeye is going to take a shot of 2, cut in half to 1, to Solarite of Vetus, and that's going to be a reaction triggering to potentially kill the, well, presumably kill the Rattling Deadeye, and that's going to be Commissarial Bolt Pistol, dealing a point of damage to Solarite of Vetus. So the Rattling Deadeye is gone, and now it's going to be our Dark Eldar player's opportunity to attack. Corvus only has 1 resource, so I can't think of any Dark Eldar like mid-combat actions that our AM player is going to have to worry about, and Solarite of Vetus is already going to be sitting at 2 points of damage unless Corvus decides to shield, but he's got, only 2 shield value cards in hand, therefore it's looking a little bit tricky for him here. Random Joe also only has 2 value shield cards. If the Solarite dies, then our Astra Militarum player only has 3 units, like they're currently tied. But let's say Anxious Infantry Platoon attacks, it kills Solarite of Vetus. I do not believe that the Solarite is going to actually be able to trigger its ability once it is dead, because if it's in the discard pile, you're not going to be able to have a reaction trigger off of it. So the Anxious Infantry Platoon is going to be attacking, so 4 is going to be cut in half to 2, and either the Solarite is going to die and not be able to trigger its reaction, or instead we'll see Corvus use a shield card, and then the Solarite will have an opportunity to attack, potentially killing the Tallarn Raiders, or potentially just damaging Broderick, who's presumably potentially going to be healed here at Iridial. So Kevin's got to make the difficult decision here. Is it going to be worth killing one of these Astra Militarum units at the cost of a suffering, or is it just not? Does he want the shield card, or does he want to attack? Okay, looks like he does discard that copy of Suffering, and I believe I kind of misspoke earlier in this video. I was thinking that, Solarite of Vetus is going to be able to deal with a large number of Guardsman tokens, but it's, provided you have to survive each and every attack. It's just like Repulsor Impact Field in a sense. You've got to withstand the damage to be able to keep dishing it out. But the Solarite of Vetus here does get an opportunity to take a swing at the Tallarn Raiders. It's currently a 3-2 unit, thanks to the presence of Broderick. So are we going to see the Raiders end up destroyed, or are we going to see a copy of Preemptive Barrage lost? I would imagine that it's going to be favorable to get rid of the Raiders as opposed to a shield card, but it's definitely a bit of a thought experiment here for a Random Joe. If the Tallarn Raiders do die, then the more Preemptive Barrage the merrier, because if you can bloody Kith, then you're going to just dramatically increase the odds of your being able to win a match here. And if our AM player wins the green and red icons with this planet, if he wins the next planet, he could potentially win where Siren Zithlex is sitting, or otherwise he could win at planet 4 or even planet number 5. So things are looking a little bit tricky for Corvus, and I can only hope for Random Joe's sake that he's able to come across some more economy units, because if Corvus stumbles upon a copy of Archon's Palace or something like that, things could go very bad very quickly for Random Joe. So he's yet to reveal his choice of allied faction. Hopefully for his sake it's Orcs, and he maybe draws an ammo depot as his next card, but we'll have to see how things end up being resolved. And at present we're still thinking as to whether or not we want to use a shield card to protect this Tallarn Raiders. Okay, looks like the Tallarn Raiders are indeed going to end up killed. That's going to be another point of damage dealt out to Solarite of Vetus, and now Broderick Worr is going to be able to attack for 3. That will be cut in half and rounded up to 2, which we could see Suffering discarded to block that off entirely. And then Solarite of Vetus could retreat, otherwise she risks being, just destroyed. So is it going to be a copy of Suffering discarded? No, it's going to be Solarite of Vetus killed. It's going to be that copy of Promotion gone, and that's going to be 2 Astra Militarum units versus 2, but I guess before that happens, we're going to come to the end of a combat round. We'll generate a Guardsman token, then these are going to ready, and then, only then, will we have the opportunity to take a combat turn, and we will see this battle conclude. So we do have the opportunity for Random Joe to create a Guardsman token. I very much hope for his sake that he does go ahead and create one of those prior to capturing this planet. It's a shame that he's not going to be able to trigger Taurus. And it looks like he's maybe not going to use the forward barracks. So that's definitely a shame for him. That's a suboptimal play. I'm not going to interfere with this game, but there's definitely no reason not to trigger a Guardsman token. Hopefully that's not going to come back and bite our Astra Militarum player in the ass. Note, Kith chose deliberately not to create a Chimera token, but the more units, the merrier, and it is just a damn shame that we did not see the forward barracks activated, but in any case, Karnath is going to be triggered. That's going to be Kith's opportunity to really do nothing. I guess you could have forced both players to put a unit into play, but Kith is going to bounce away, and again, need I say it one last time, I just really wish we'd have seen a Guardsman token created. But regardless, it's not my job to meddle. We're going to be transitioning to the HQ phase in just a moment, and we'll have to see what our players stumble upon. It's definitely going to be a priority for Random Joe to win planet number 1, as well as planet number 3. Our new 5th planet is going to be Ossus 4, which allows you to steal a resource. For Corvus, he got a Rogue Trader, great economy card. He got Foretell to cancel the battle ability that your opponent is triggering, which is a nice little cantrip effect. It's generally not bad by any means, but we don't exactly see a lot of supremely desirable battle abilities out here on the tabletop. Nothing that's game-changing in any sense. And then Corvus still has an Incubus Warrior. He's also got a Kith's Chimera Masters to just put some additional units into play. So yet again, for Broderick's sake, I really wish he'd have had one more body upon the tabletop. What he's stumbled across is he got a copy of Suppressive Fire to exhaust an enemy unit, like a Bloodied Reavers, which could be great. Like, let's say Broderick shows up at planet number 1, you could exhaust Broderick just to knock out the Bloodied Reavers that could attack for 4, and then if you come to the end of a combat round, that's going to be another Guardsman token. Or we could use Steel Legion Chimera, which, if you throw that at a planet, the Bloodied Reavers could potentially kill it in a single swing, but if you decide to direct your fire at anything else, then that's going to just mitigate the damage there. We've also got a copy of Iron Guard Recruits, a nice 2-command icon unit, and then yet again, if I guess the trick with the infantry platoon here is like, it's going to be showing up exhausted, so it's not going to be able to deal out a lot of damage. This 5th planet being green definitely helps Broderick. Broderick could try to play an extreme long game by sending his infantry platoon to planet number 3 or something and trying to set up there, but I'm thinking he probably wants to keep up this I don't know, I guess if you want to call it like a snowball effect, to just try to keep dealing out damage to the enemy, and considering just how few card bonuses there are on any of these planets, it seems like it would be a little bit foolhardy to let Kith potentially win planet number 1 uncontested, because she's currently sitting at both of the planets that have got card bonuses associated with them. But Kevin throws out a copy of Rogue Trader to planet number 4. That's going to be a grand total of 3 resources, unless we see Random Joe throw out his Iron Guard Recruits opposite it. But what really kind of sucks is it's going to be Joe's opportunity to do that, and then he's going to be out of deploy actions, and then it's going to be Corvus having free reign to do something like dump a Chimera Masters or an Incubus Warrior atop this Rogue Trader, and then he's again going to be able to win a total of 3 resources. So is okay, it's not going to be the Iron Guard recruits being deployed as an econ unit. This actually works out pretty favorably for our AM player. Looks like we're going very aggressively toward planet number 1. So the Iron Guard recruits at a green planet, they're going to be able to attack for 2. They're going to be able to survive, and that means forward barracks is all the more likely to go off. Because we're at a green planet, there's not going to be any Archon's terrors to account for, and unless Corvus is fortunate enough to come across a copy of Clavex Warleader, it could be fairly difficult for him to end up winning out. But let's say, where exactly does Kith want to go? Kith could benefit from going to planet number 1 to ensure that the Bloodied Reavers is going to be able to attack. Note, Iridial is the healing planet, so whichever player ends up winning at that location, it's going to pay off quite a lot. Like if you were to barely lose that battle, have a ton of damage on your Warlord, and then the enemy pulls all the damage tokens off of theirs, that would definitely suck. So I could see Kith pushing at that first planet, but Broderick Worr arriving at that first planet means that Kith is basically going to eventually be forced away from it. And that wouldn't be any good for her. If Broderick does arrive at the first planet, I guess he may as well just hang around because he's going to be able to heal away. I was thinking if it were any other planet, you could show up, and then if the enemy Warlord does not arrive, you could retreat so that the Bloodied Reavers is only attacking for 2 if you don't feel comfortable attacking, and then retreating. Corvus throws a copy of Incubus Warrior to planet number 1, and I can only imagine that suppressive fire is going to come into effect with perhaps this Iron Guard recruits tapping out the Bloodied Reavers, and then maybe, I guess Kith will probably go to planet number 1 just to maintain initiative, because otherwise Broderick could potentially kill the Bloodied Reavers were it not for this suffering here. But, if you kill the Steel Legion Chimera, Broderick Worr's pistol is going to fire off. If you try to kill Broderick, you're going to be losing a lot of damage thanks to the Steel Legion Chimera. Yet again, I really wish we'd have had that additional Guardsman token in play, because note, of course, Packmaster Kith generates a Chimera token for herself. And what exactly are we going to see here? So planet number 1 is going to be a card for Kith, planet 2 is going to be a card and a resource for Kith, and then planet number 4, this Strangling Dark Eldar player is going to be getting 3 resources from that location. So nothing during the command phase for our AM player, and that is a mountain of resources for DE. So Corvus, I can only imagine, is going to want something along the lines of a Clavex Warleader, not a Corvus Warleader, which it may as well be called that. But he was not so fortunate. He gets 4 total resources and 1 card, but it's just going to be another copy of Rogue Trader, so he doesn't really have any combat tricks at his disposal. He could potentially cancel a healing effect, but then you're going to have to, you'd have to have Kith somehow unexhausted yet losing the battle for that to happen. And if Kith retreats, then she's going to be, exhausted, so that doesn't exactly work out. Looks like Iron Guard recruits are going to be exhausting via suppressive fire to knock out the Bloodied Reavers, and it's just a shame that we don't have a preemptive barrage going out, so it could potentially be the Steel Legion Chimera killing the Incubus, and then Broderick killing the Chimera. That would definitely work things in Broderick's favor, but it's going to be Kith with the initiative. It's going to be an Incubus Warrior taking a swing of 3, which is going to be insufficient to kill even the Steel Legion Chimera. Then the Steel Legion could kill a Chimera token, and then we'll have to see whether or not we see a shield card discarded just to preserve the viscera here of this Chimera. But things are looking pretty damn good for Broderick Worr, and I guess it's going to be up to Kith to see what Kith does. The Incubus Warrior is going to be the first blood of combat. It delivers a blast at the Steel Legion Chimera. I don't think there's any reason to shield that yet, so I would imagine that'll be 3 full points of damage dealt out to that unit. And now what exactly are we going to see? I can only imagine that Random Joe is dreading as to whether or not his opponent has a Clavex War Leader in hand, because now would be a very opportunistic time to throw that unit into play prior to the Chimera having an opportunity to attack. But fortunately for his sake, that is not the case. And I guess as we go through our HQ phase, for Broderick to be able to keep up this little bit of an onslaught he's got going on, he's just going to need to draw a lot of combat-capable units, and then hopefully commit his Warlord to planet number 3, and then just hope and pray he's going to be able to survive whatever it is the DE player is going to be able to bring to bear against him, because he's sitting at a green planet. And if Corvus ends up drawing a lot of Clavex War Leaders, then things could go all the way bad. But if it's just Archon's Terror, then it's not going to be that big of a deal. But the Steel Legion Chimera handily killed off the normal Chimera, and Packmaster Kith will deliver an attack at the Chimera. Do we see preemptive barrage or not? I don't really think there's too much of a benefit to allowing it to remain in play. What kind of stinks is that Kith is going to have an opportunity to attack again prior to our AM player being able to do anything. So if the Steel Legion Chimera is destroyed, that could be the Commissarial Bolt Pistol killing that Incubus Warrior, unless we see Foretell discarded as shields. So do we want to keep it or not? It looks like we do decide to keep it. It's another body on the table. It could be rather valuable in potentially winning Yavvarn, but then again, what could be monumentally valuable is just having a shitload of units sitting on this planet, and then you maybe use a couple copies of Preemptive Barrage, and then you just obliterate the Dark Eldar player, and yet again, the loss of one Guardsman token is just really crappy, because it would definitely make the odds so much more favorable for Broderick. But Kevin is done. Now it's going to be Broderick's opportunity to attack. I think if it were me, I'd be sorely tempted to kill this Bloodied Reavers, but I'm thinking I would, because I bothered to shield the Steel Legion Chimera, I'd try and attack the Incubus Warrior, just because I'd want to kill it for sure, unless my opponent, like Corvus, has 39 cards remaining in his deck, unless one of those in his hand is the Agonizer of Bren, then he's not going to be able to shield the Incubus Warrior here. So it looks like he was taking a little bit of a gamble. He deals an attack to the Bloodied Reavers. Will we see a copy of Suffering discarded or not? Looks like we don't, so I don't know. I guess color me quite surprised. Corvus is keeping his copy of Suffering for when it's much more valuable. Corvus is, I don't know, a dozen or 25 times as experienced as I am, probably to say the least. So he's definitely a better judgment call maker than I am, and that is going to bring us to the end of a combat round. Random Joe, we are no longer allowed to be friends if you forget forward barracks a second time. So all of our units are going to ready. It's the combat round ends. There we go. Thank you. We finally see our first Guardsman token being generated. All of our units are ready, and now it's going to be Packmaster Kith's decision whether or not to retreat. Spoiler alert, it's definitely in Kith's favor to do a little bit of retreating, and now Kith will maintain initiative. Looks like she's going to keep the Incubus Warrior at that planet, and I can only imagine that she's going to try to deal that killing blow against the Steel Legion Chimera, because otherwise it would be absolutely pointless to leave the Incubus Warrior at that planet. So very interesting how things ended up being resolved here. I would imagine the Incubus Warrior will kill the Steel Legion Chimera. Broderick is going to get swept up into his HQ during the following round. Presumably he's going to be going to this planet just to make sure that all of his units are ready, but I could also see him going to planet number 2 just to try to stop Kith from attaining some sort of critical mass. You're certainly potentially going to be falling victim of Archon's Terror and tricks like that, so maybe I go back on my word, and maybe I think it would be a safer bet to, just save all of your guys here and just dump them at Yavvarn, where you do have those protective benefits afforded by Broderick Worr. So, looks like Corvus has indicated he indeed is not going to be retreating, and now that'll be that Incubus Warrior killing the Steel Legion Chimera, unless maybe, well, I guess if it were to decide to attack attack the Anxious Infantry platoon, it wouldn't be able to deal that killing blow. So let's see. I guess Kith is in her HQ, and she's currently not exhausted. I'd have to check the RRG to see if Warlords retreat at the end of a combat round, if that actually allows them to remain ready or not. I believe retreating always results in a unit being exhausted, but let's see what happens. We probably aren't going to have to worry about that contingency, because the Incubus Warrior attacks. Random Joe is, I don't know if he's just thinking about what to do, because there's absolutely nothing an Astra Militarum player can do to save a Steel Legion Chimera, I think, outside of like a Glorious Intervention in Colonel Strachan's deck. There we go. That'll be an attack from Broderick Worr. And this is interesting that we're deciding to use Broderick to do that effect. Okay, I guess, sorry, that was the Commissarial Bolt Pistol that was taking a shot at the Incubus Warrior. So absolutely superb play there. If we were to see a Clavax War Leader dumped onto the table, that as a result would be like its ability would fizzle, and then the AM player would have a chance to attack because he just used the pistol. He didn't attack manually. So Ridial is going to be 1, but our Imperial Guard player has nothing to strip damage off of. Again, bit of a shame that there aren't 2 Guardsman tokens that are presumably going to be dumped on this planet, but we'll have to see what exactly happens. There are no additional battles. That is going to bring us to the end of this turn, and we're about to see our HQ phase. So for Corvus's sake, let's hope he can come across some really powerful units to make sure that his opponent isn't going to be able to win. He got a copy of Chimera Den, which is normally pretty valuable to see. We do have a Kith's Chimera Masters, but he doesn't exactly have a large number of Chimera token at present. So we've got a Slith Mercenary for him, a nice economy unit. It's not necessarily the best thing in the world for our guard player, but having drawn Summary Execution opens up some really interesting options for Broderick. So what Broderick could do is he could try to be ballsy and press the attack, try to win at planet number 1, which it's likely he might be able to do that. Broderick is going to command initiative. The Rattling Deadeye is going to be able to attack during ranged, but it'll show up exhausted thanks to Siren Zithlex. But if you can survive more combat rounds, even if your Warlord is bloodied, Forward Barracks is going to continue generating tokens indefinitely, so we might end up seeing the game won at planet number 1 here, and I'm kind of hoping that Broderick would end up doing that just because it would be monumentally entertaining. But Summary Execution, it's the planet remains green until the end of the battle. So if we see that as like the first combat action, that could be incredibly nasty, even if Corvus draws Archon's Terror and things like that. Certainly, Corvus has got some combat units in hand, but it's nothing so formidable that it's going to be able to overcome Broderick Worr here, at least potentially, just because the Guardsman tokens are so hugely frustrating. But looks like Broderick is going to play it a little bit more, well, okay, maybe not. I was thinking maybe he was going to be a little bit conservative and just go for that Planet 2 victory condition, but maybe instead he's deciding he wants to try to press the attack at planet number 1, or maybe he just wants to use the Rattling Deadeye as an economy unit. Looks like he does decide to go with planet number 2, and in throwing that Rattling Deadeye there, what kind of stinks is he's really just kind of letting the Dark Eldar player run amok in regard to command. Note that our new 5th planet here is going to be Atrox Prime, that planet that bombards adjacent planets or the enemy HQ. So, Corvus throws out another economy unit. Note he's got all these card bonus planets on lockdown. So planet 5, currently planet number 1, card and a resource there. So what will we see? The Rattling Deadeye could have been a ruse, but what will Corvus put out onto the tabletop? Summary Execution is a very powerful tool for Random Joe to use. So will he do the safe thing and go to planet 2, Or will he be ever so slightly ballsy in going to Karnath? Depending on where Kith goes, like if Kith shows up at planet number 1, gosh, I guess, okay, so yeah, we see a Chimera Masters at planet number 1, and I can only imagine that together indicates that War is probably not going to be going to planet number 1, but maybe Kith is so audacious as to want to go elsewhere. The Chimera Den, of course, is fantastic in allowing you to relocate any of these units to pretty much wherever you'd like. Random Joe has, of course, by now passed, and it's going to be a whole hell of a lot of units being played onto planet number 1, so looks like Kith is not wanting to send herself to that planet, but maybe she will regardless. I'm probably much too frivolous when it comes to allowing my opponent an opportunity to win the game, just because I try to get as much value as I can out of everything, sometime to the point where it becomes my own downfall. Probably more often than not becomes my own downfall. But Kevin is done. He's got a 2-value shield card in hand, and he's also got Foretell. Karnath could allow Aatrox Prime to fire, but it could only hit the AM player's HQ or an adjacent planet, or we could rout a unit, but if they're all at this green planet, that's not going to do anything, and then I guess the only other ability is just stealing 1 resource from your opponent. Corvus is looking to win a whole hell of a lot of command. If War shows up at 2, I can only imagine that's only going to be 1 resource for the AM player, Random Joe, whereas Kevin will accrue a card, a resource, and then 3 resources, and then 2 resources and a card, and that is definitely a little bit difficult. So Kith does indeed show up to planet number 1. That's going to be yet another Chimera token, and this is going to be a whole hell of a lot of units arriving exhausted at this planet, only to get blown to pieces by the AM player on our following round, even with the assistance of Preemptive Barrage to maybe get Kith out of that planet as quickly as possible. But what will we see? This is going to be a huge amount of income for Kith. Kith comes across a Archon's Terror. She gets a copy of Raid, and out of all the cards in Corvus's deck, I would say those are probably the least useful. Raid is a 2-value shield card, but you're not going to be stealing resources from your opponent when they've got 4 resources and you have 9, and then Archon's Terror, of course, everything sitting at planet 2 is going to be entirely immune to that. So let's hope for our AM player's sake he comes across 2 copies of Anxious Infantry Platoon on his next draw, and for Corvus's sake, let's hope we see like a double Clavex War Leader, because it is going to take a lot for Corvus to be able to successfully remove this, AM Scourge from this planet. But we see a 1 resource steal thanks to Ossus 4. That's going to be Kith, of course, handily winning that planet. During the next deploy phase, we might see Chimera Den relocate a bunch of Chimera to this planet where they'll be ready. Like if they don't move alongside the Warlord during the command phase, then they don't show up exhausted. But then again, Preemptive Barrage might be a fantastic opportunity to pick off those Chimera. But I think our Dark Eldar player is probably going to be saving these 2 shield value cards just to make sure that those Chimera do not end up being killed. So we end up seeing a battle at planet number 2. Random Joe indicates that he does not want to trigger Yvarn, and that is going to bring us to an HQ phase here, and this is potentially going to be the final round of the game. What exactly are we going to see? Our AM player has a lot of units at planet number 1. Kith has got a mountain of units in her HQ, but they're all going to be showing up exhausted. Okay, looks like we see the Chimera showing up. I would believe that is, I guess, just after this battle concludes is an easy enough way to do it. And let's see what our players draw. So these Chimera are hopefully going to fall prey to Preemptive Barrage. And remember, if Corvus loses this game, that means he's going to be out of the running of the tournament. And I kind of did a piss poor job of introducing these players, but I believe the Black Crusade is the 5th official Octagon online league. And out of 2 of those leagues thus far, Corvus was the champion. And for one of those leagues, he was the runner-up. So So our Astra Militarum player actually got some pretty damn decent stuff. He did get 2 units, which is going to be useful. Sacalum Shrine Guard, which is going to be a 3 attack, 2 hit point unit at planet number 1, and he also got Captain Marcus, which is going to be great to sacrifice something like an Exhausted Guardsman token to exhaust an enemy non-warlord unit, which could be some formidable thing like an Incubus Warrior here. Corvus got an Incubus Warrior. He's played another Chimera Master, and now he's got a ton of these Chimeras sitting at the planet. But provided that we can do preemptive barrages for 3 or more, that means there's going to be no opportunity for these Chimera to survive, and that's dramatically going to increase the likelihood that Random Joe is going to be able to win this one. So what exactly will we see? We're going to see Captain Marcus grace the tabletop, and unless Corvus can spend more resources than he can, he's not going to be able to use Raid, and therefore Preemptive Barrage is most definitely going to come into play. So, okay, that was a bit of a surprise. We see Suffering used for its conventional effect against a Rattling Deadeye, but so long as that is sitting, remaining at the planet, it's not going to be, it's basically a body sitting at that planet to use forward barracks, and if Broderick Worr survives to the end of a combat round without being bloodied, then that'll be a great opportunity for Broderick to use his effect here. So during, something critically important to keep in mind is Archon's Terror is a combat action, Summary Execution is a combat action, but Corvus has initiative, and therefore he's going to have the chance to do that Archon's Terror prior to the opponent using Summary Execution. So Kith is going to arrive at planet number 1, Broderick Worr is going to arrive at planet number 1, and this is a ton of units that we're seeing, but it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 command icons for Worr, relative to 3 command icons for Kith, so that's going to be a resource, which doesn't do anything really, for Random Joe. I'm sorry, looks like Corvus is targeting planet number 1, and that doesn't seem to be accurate. So yeah, Random Joe's indicating that he gets planet 1, I think, so a little bit of a mistake there. But at planet 2, that's going to be 3 resources for Corvus, and then planet number 4, that is going to be a card in a resource for Corvus. So let's hope for Corvus's sake he gets a Clavex War Leader. I know I keep mentioning it, but it's going to make a mountain of difference just because it's definitely a 2-for-1 card, and Corvus most definitely has the resources to pay for it. So once we move into our combat phase, I could only imagine that we're going to see Archon's Terror used rather early. Very interesting play here. This is going to be Searing Brand that Corvus has got, and he's certainly got plenty of resources for it. So 3 unpreventable damage is going to be enough to kill like an Anxious Infantry platoon, and if we see Preemptive Barrage used on, say, the platoon, the Sacalum Shrine Guard, Captain Marcus, all those 3 or 4 attack value characters, then that could be a great opportunity to use Searing Brand to kill that unit. Or we could just see Archon's Terror remove the Anxious Infantry platoon from that planet, and we could see, I guess, we could use Searing Brand to remove this unit here. So what okay, yeah, I was going to say you may as well use Captain Marcus now prior to getting into combat when Searing Brand could be an issue, but we're seeing Marcus exhaust, and it's going to be knocking out a Chimera token. That seems like okay, I was going to say it seems like a strange play, but because a unit is leaving play, that's going to be the Bolt Pistol firing at the Incubus Warrior, and then we see that Archon's Terror discarded as a shield. I think that's very strange that we see Archon's Terror used as a shield as opposed to Foretell, but I would imagine that Corvus thinks that Foretell is going to be more useful in the long term because, of course, he's going to try and win this battle, and if he's able to do so, he's going to have to win another blue tech planet, namely our 4th planet, or he'll have to win, what else has he got? He's got some material icons, so he could win at Farron also. But we see Random Joe throw out that copy of Preemptive Barrage And he's got a lot of Dark Eldar units to chew through, but forward barracks is hopefully going to give him quite a bit of fodder to keep throwing at our DE player. Let's say, for his sake, he's going to give it to Broderick and Captain Marcus and the Sakhalem Shrine Guard, or let's just say his highest attack units. So let's say Broderick, Marcus, and the Anxious Infantry Platoon Kith might use Searing Brand to kill the platoon. Then we could see 2 attacks of 3. Like, I guess the platoon leaving play could potentially kill the Incubus Warrior, but between Marcus attacking, between War attacking, that could be a couple of dead Chimera, and then Kith will have an opportunity to attack. Kith will either hit the Warlord, but if the Warlord isn't bloodied by the end of the round, then Broderick is going to be able to retreat, and it's just going to be very interesting how things end up going here. Summary Execution has not yet been used. I guess, we presumably want to be using that to make this planet green at some point, and then I guess he's just going to ditch one of these units that is going to be shortly exhausted. So maybe this Sakhalem Shrine Guard is going to be his target, so he'll maybe attack for, I guess, well, I suppose we're actually sitting at a green planet, so my sincerest apologies. I was thinking of our previous planet. So Summary Execution is not actually going to come into effect, and now that we've decided which of our units are ranged, now we see Searing Brand. So unless we have 2 cards to discard, which is of course not an option, that is going to be 3 unpreventable damage dealt to that unit. And that is unfortunately going to be a dead Anxious Infantry Platoon. And I guess as soon as Random Joe kind of owns up to the fact that it has to be unpreventable, his platoon is going to be dead. But then the Shrine Guard and Captain Marcus are presumably going to be able to kill off at least a couple tokens. So let's see. The bolt pistol is going to fire. We'll have to see if Corvus decides to throw away that copy of Foretell just to keep it around. I would imagine that he'll be doing that. So the platoon is killed, and Foretell is going to be discarded as shields, and therefore, I guess, again, I misspoke earlier about throwing away Archon's Terror over Foretell. I forgot that this is already a green planet, as opposed to having to modify it to be green. So Searing Brand is gone, but we've still got 2 ranged units, and now War is going to have to face a considerable bit of opposition. And really, all we have to do is, I guess, God, this is so difficult. Like, ideal circumstance, I guess Sakhalem Shrine Guard will attack. We could see Raid discarded as shields, so that, well, I guess that unit would still be killed. So it would be 2 dead Chimera, then Incubus Warrior, Kith's Chimera Masters. All of these things would be able to bloody Broderick unless he specifically retreats, and I don't think that our Astra Militarum faction player is going to have a sufficient amount of bodies sitting here on the table for this to end up working out for him. Kith has just got too much mass. Like, our AM player wasn't able to draw enough cards and earn enough resources to really pose enough of a threat to our Dark Eldar player. But both of these could kill a Chimera token. Then we could have a token attack, I guess, Broderick, but if that happens, we could have Iron Guard recruits attack an Incubus Warrior, but we could see that shield card discarded to preserve that. The Warrior could attack Broderick again, and then it would be kind of GG here for Broderick. So this might be a rather painful loss for Random Joe, but let's see how things end up working out. So the Sakhalem Shrine Guard exhaust to try to kill the Incubus Warrior, and that is going to be another point of damage gone, so it's obliterated completely, and now it's going to be Captain Marcus with the opportunity to take an attack. He could kill a Chimera token, but that's going to be 1 less target for the commissarial bolt pistol to shoot at, since it's one fewer army unit, but Captain Marcus takes a shot at one of those Chimera tokens. Again, it's a bit of a shame that we don't have one additional Guardsman token here, just because it would definitely improve the odds for war. And now, since we've used all of our ranged units, it's going to be back to Corvus. Well, it's going to be going to Corvus for the first time. So he'll have a chance now to attack War, and will he go for the Warlord, or will he try to kill off units? Looks like he's trying to pick apart units. So this is going to be an attack of 2 going out to the Iron Guard recruits. I could only imagine that you might as well shield against it, and now that'll be the recruits having the opportunity to kill, maybe, that copy of a Chimera token here, but that'll be a great chance for Raid to spare that token, and it looks like that is exactly what we're going to see. Raid is going to be discarded. And now this Chimera token is going to be able to deal a killing blow to really anything it likes. So Random Joe is going to be entirely out of cards, and Corvus is going to be entirely out of cards. And now math is going to get alarmingly simple for both of our players here. So I guess Random Joe says he's going to call out that he might have an action. And I'm not exactly sure what that action may be. Yeah, Corvus is saying, really? Because Random Joe doesn't have any cards in hand. Everything is abundantly clear on the tabletop, and I can't think for the life of me what that action may be. Ah, that's right. So he's saying Captain Marcus is an action. And yes, Random Joe is completely right. He used Captain Marcus once during the command phase. So he might decide to throw away a copy of Iron Guard Recruits just to exhaust that Chimera token. So very interesting. Corvus made that mistake, but then again, I quite clearly made that mistake as well, and don't I feel like a bit of a fool now for having a good chuckle at Random Joe's expense? So will he discard the copy of Iron Guard Recruits? I guess best case scenario is that Chimera token is going to be exhausted, and then Broderick will have an opportunity to attack something and kill it. I think Siren Zithlax would probably be the best case target there, so you get rid of the highest HP unit. Okay, interestingly, okay, maybe I lost track of which player was, okay, alright, so here's what happened. Marcus discarded the Iron Guard recruits to exhaust Kith's Chimera Masters. Commissarial Bolt Pistol killed a Chimera token, which it actually can't do. So let me say Bolt Pistol cannot target tokens. So I really hate to interfere, but that's just, I don't want the rules invalidated at this point. So just calling that out, and I suppose let's take a moment to see how our players react. All right, so we took just a moment to kind of rewind the video, reset things up, because Captain Marcus could still sacrifice this Iron Guard recruits, but upon it leaving play, the Commissarial Bolt Pistol triggers off of army units leaving play, but you can only target army units with it, so therefore it's unfortunately illegal to have Captain Marcus sacrifice this Iron Guard recruits to exhaust a Chimera Master, and then to have the Bolt Pistol kill off this copy of the Chimera. So I think the developers for the most part have done a pretty remarkable job balancing this game, just because being able to kill off all these Chimera tokens would be absolutely fantastic. So let's see what exactly we see done with Captain Marcus or any other effect. All right, so it looks like Random Joe has made his decision where he wants to exhaust a Chimera with Marcus. The Iron Guard recruits are going to end up leaving play in order to fund that effect, and that's going to allow him to deal out 1 point of damage to any of the army units situated at this planet, I would imagine. Okay, I guess it's going to be a copy of Kith's Chimera Masters, and I can only imagine that that means the Guardsman token is going to be delivering its own attack to this copy of Slith Mercenary, but I guess I spoke too soon because Packmaster Kith is going to be ridding the galaxy of that guardsman token, so interesting here. I guess Broderick deals a point of damage to the Kith's Chimera Masters, and I guess the thought process there in killing off those units is that they're, it's not that they're really like high damage output units or something, but it's just to try to get as many bodies off of the table as is possible, and just, I guess, slowly but surely try to win through an attrition-style victory, but I think that in having 5 2-attack value units, that's just going to be too much for Broderick to try to overcome, but we'll have to see how things work out. I guess Kith has the opportunity to attack first, and now things are going to be rather tricky for Broderick just because he's got an incoming attack, and Kith knows that he's not going to be able to shield sufficiently to deal with it. Like, Kith could have a Chimera token kill the Sakhalem Shrine Guard. There's no shielding anymore. Then a Guardsman token could kill the Slith Mercenary or something like that. Corvus calls out, so we're basically all out of actions. I can only imagine Corvus is maybe getting ever so slightly impatient. I can definitely empathize with the gentleman, and it seems like this match should be ending in pretty short order. Corvus says, guess I'll just keep swinging, but it looks like I lose, and perhaps he's doing the combat math farther ahead than I have. So the Chimera takes a swing at the Sakhalem Shrine Guard. They are going to be killed. Random Joe says he maths out otherwise, but I guess they may as well actually play this out. A little bit of a pet peeve of mine is when players like stop playing and they just talk out how the match will end as opposed to just getting there manually. But regardless, the Chimera token is going to take a swing at the Sakhalem Shrine Guard. I can only imagine the reason it's not leaving the tabletop is because Random Joe is maybe writing an essay out to Corvus. But yes, so Corvus says faster to do it than to do the math. So yeah, so let's just see what happens here. Sakhalem Shrine Guard is going to be killed. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised and our Dark Eldar champion is going to be knocked ever so slightly off of his high horse. That was a very okay. So again, yes, it's the commissarial bolt pistol. I keep thinking, I'm like, why on earth are you attacking a 1 hit point unit with a 3 attack value Warlord? So yeah, that's going to be the dead Sakhalem Shrine Guard. That's going to be a dead copy of Kith's Chimera Masters. Now it's going to be a Guardsman token taking a swing at the Slith Mercenary, and that is going to be a bit of a value play there. Now it's going to be our Dark Eldar player's opportunity to attack once again. And need I say it one last time, I wish that our AM player had one more goddamn Guardsman token, just because seeing someone take a bit of the piss out of Packmaster Kith is okay in my book. Her reign of terror has lasted long enough, but let us see how this match ends up being finished off. So the Slith Mercenary is going to be killed, and now it's going to be up to Corvus to do a little bit of difficult math here. So he's got a sufficient amount of damage with which to, well, I guess he could have Kith swing at Broderick. Broderick kills Siren Zithlex. Then another Chimera token hits Broderick. Then Captain Marcus swings, kills a Chimera token, and I guess we'll have to see how everything ends up working out. I think Broderick, I suppose he may as well stay at a planet just to be an additional body. It's not really going to do him much good to, like, I guess it's just going to be a really difficult call as to whether or not you should let Broderick stay or let him leave. But in any case, I keep forgetting that Marcus is getting that attack value for whatever reason, but Siren Zithlex is going to be killed. We now see a Chimera take a swing at Broderick Worr, and now this is where things get very interesting. So if Broderick stays at this planet, he's going to be bloodied. He could kill a Chimera token, or he could take a big chunk out of Packmaster Kith, but regardless, he's going to end up being bloodied. We will see a Guardsman token token being put into play, but then Marcus is only going to be able to attack for 2. The Guardsman tokens are only going to be able to attack for 1, but Kith is only going to be able to kill off 1 token a round. So let's say if Broderick Worr kills off one of these Chimera tokens and then he is bloodied, Kith will have the opportunity to attack first. Let's say a token kills this token, Marcus can kill another token, and then there will be another token to do some killing. So I guess, like I was saying, it'd probably just be quicker to do the math, and it looks like Broderick is making the decision for us in deciding to stay. He's going to kill that Chimera, and now he is about to be bloodied. So leaving the difficult math for our players, Broderick takes 2 points of damage thanks to Packmaster Kith. That means he's going to be flipped to his bloodied side. I recently reinstalled Octagon, so unfortunately I don't have the bloodied art for that Warlord, but he's going to be bounced back to the HQ, and now all of a sudden it's going to be this 2/3 Captain Marcus and this 1/2 Guardsman token, and the forward barracks is potentially going to win the game for Broderick here. But Kith is going to have an opportunity to swing first. Let's say Kith takes an attack, kills a Guardsman token, Guardsman token attacks, kills a Chimera token, then the Chimera attacks, kills a token, Marcus kills a token. It's looking like attrition may go to the side of Broderick, but let's see how things get mathed out. It's going to be up to Corvus to take a swing. So I guess walking through it one last time, Kith kills a token, token kills a token, token kills another token, and then Marcus kills a token, and that will bring us to the end of a combat round. We get another Guardsman token, and then it's Marcus and a token against Packmaster Kith, and Kith is going to be unable to kill more than one thing a round. So Random Joe is saying, like, if Marcus was a 2/2, you would win, and Corvus calls out yes. And once again, that pet peeve, our players are talking as opposed to finishing the goddamn match, but that is totally fine, not my game. I'm just an enthusiast, and it looks as though everybody in our chat log is absolutely shitting themselves over, oh my god, it's 1 hit point that made all the difference. And it definitely is a bit of a spectacular difference. So, need I say it one final time, if we'd have had another Guardsman token generated, the match wouldn't have been nearly so close, but it was one hell of a game. Eric Keelback in our chat log calls out, awesome game, guys, and I am not sure if our players are calling it here or are they going to play it out. All right, that is going to be the GG. Good game. Random Joe triumphs over Corvus. Kevin Hines is going to be knocked out, eliminated from the tournament. That has been a top 16 match. Random Joe is going to advance, and if I happen to win my very own top 16 match, then the week thereafter I'll be facing Random Joe myself, presuming he, I guess if I win, then I will indeed fight Random Joe. So one hell of a game. Absolutely fantastic play by both of our players. Forward Barracks turns out pretty good card. But of course, Packmaster Kith is a powerhouse as well. So, congratulations to Random Joe for beating one of the best Conquest LCG players there is. But of course, a monumental bit of thanks to Kevin for affording me the opportunity to record this game. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that the commentary was up to par. Regardless, if you did enjoy this content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you've not already done so. Or if you are already subscribed, even if you're not, do consider sharing this content, because the more people there are that end up being exposed to this game, the more people may give Conquest LCG a try, they may enjoy what they experience, join our community, and of course, all the greater we are in number, the bigger message we send to Fantasy Flight Games telling them to continue to support this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I would encourage you to do so through Facebook or on Twitter. And if you ever feel inclined to help support the Hive Tyrant, I would be absolutely honored were you to make a donation or contribution to my Patreon. Even $1 or $2 on a strictly monthly basis nevertheless helps me to recover a great deal of my file hosting and operating expenses. But as always, thank you so much, and once again, be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come.